Oh, look, the webinar has started. So good evening, everyone, and welcome. Big welcome to AP McCoy, champ. Big
Hello.
welcome, thank you very much also to Mick Fitzgerald, and a very big welcome to Francesca Kamani, who's going to take over very, very shortly. I've just got really a couple of people to thank, a couple more people. This whole series of Zooms has been kindly sponsored by Jem Finn, so thank you very much to them for keep on doing it. We've got more to announce going forward of those going into the flat season, which is really exciting. You can put questions into the chat and we will do our best. I'll reappear at about 8:20. You'll know when it's 8:20 because I'll reappear with a shiny nose or something, and we'll try and get most of the questions in that we can. I think you'll find as you ask questions, they actually tend to get answered as we go through, but that would be fantastic. What else? I could do. Well, Cheska, do you want to do the full introduction really on our two fabulous guests rather than me going into, because you'll probably want to talk a little bit about their histories and what they've done and ask some questions rather than me anyway, wouldn't you?
Good question. They probably don't really need an introduction for our very knowledgeable audience. And actually, we had a great chat with Mick last year all about his Grand National adventures, but I want to relive lots of them this time. I think the most interesting statistics or points to note for this chat is really the Grand National records. I mean, one win apiece for both jockey, and I want to chat to AP about his quest to win it because I know it took a while. So I want to find out more about that. But I also want to bring everyone in who wasn't with us a couple of minutes ago into the chat that we were just having, because we were concerned about AP's well-being. Because Holly
I'm going to just say that I'm going to disappear now.
Okay,
and I'll
you go.
reappear
Okay,
you can too, Francesca.
Have fun, everyone.
He's trying to get rid of me already. I'm sure it isn't a big secret, but I wasn't at the Lambourne Open Day, and it's the first I've heard of it. But I hear AP had a crashing fall in the show jumping. What happened?
I did. I was giving everyone hope, Francesca. I managed to fall off in front of everything, which, to be fair, I did for the best part of 20 years anyway, but I just hadn't done it recently. Hadn't done it in the last 7 or 8 years. Well, I actually did it in Spain in January, but I hadn't done it in the vicinity of Lambourne sort of for about 7 or 8 years. So it was nice. There was a lot of people there to come and support the day and obviously see me landing on my backside. And as I said, I think it actually gave a lot of people hope. There was one little kid who came over to me and said, "Oh, do you know what? I fell off my pony the other day, and it was like that." And I said, "Well, you have a lot more to fall off to catch up with me in terms of falling off, because that wasn't the first time, or it won't be the last. Well, hopefully it might be the last time I fall off, but I doubt it very much. But yeah, I had a good fall. And give everyone hope. That's what I thought."
Well, if it's any consolation, they say that you learn every time you fall off. So you're still learning. What actually happened?
I'm a slow learner.
How did you fall?
It kind of went down to the jump and decided not for me. So I thought I'd jump, but the horse thought he wasn't so keen. I was very keen. In getting the other side. I went straight over. Unfortunately, I was on my own. He didn't come with me, but yeah, not a good moment. But as I said, it won't be the first time. And yeah, you don't learn, because that's I'd imagine the best part of 1,000th time I fell off probably. So yeah. I'm not overly bright, I know, but I ain't learning when it comes to falling off.
Well, I hope the Radox, the Epsom salts, and the Arnica have helped sort you out between then and now. And I hope you're all looking forward to a big week at Aintree. What's the plan? When do you go up? I feel out of touch now because I'm not doing.
You don't do much, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just a bit of a part-timer these days. No, do you know what? To be fair, I thought it wouldn't be fair if I said I'm coming back in the spring and I'm going to muscle my way back in for the Grand National. So I thought I'd leave it to you, jumps experts, and concentrate on the flat.
You shouldn't worry about being fair, Francesca, because it's not really about being fair. And obviously the viewers would much rather look at you than they would do Michael or I, to be honest. So,
yeah. Be careful.
I'm not. I was being nice. I'm serious. I mean, who wants to look at us two? Seriously. I mean,
well, that's true. Although you should say look and listen to you.
I'm not even sure they want to listen either, to be honest. They definitely don't want to look, but I'm not sure they want to listen either. But anyway, we'll go up on. I'm going up on Wednesday. I was actually up there last Tuesday doing something for William Hill. The place looks amazing. The track looks amazing. And it's just nice. It's a special place, isn't it? The Grand National is just that very special race that you especially as a young jockey, for those young lads, there'll be a few of them that'll probably having a ride in it for the first time. There's nothing like it. It's like, I remember my first ride in the Grand National was in 1995. It was for Martin Pipe. I think he had about 8 runners. I was just about to be champion conditional. They basically couldn't get anyone else. To ride it, so they let me ride a horse called Chatham. He'd won the Hennessy a few years earlier. I asked Richard Dunwoody about him. I said, "What about Chatham?" He said, "Yeah, if you want to ride him, he won't get round, but he said you should probably ride him." I went, "Okay then." And true to his word, Chatham didn't get round, but he fell at the, I think, 8th or 9th fence. But we had a great time, and I enjoyed myself. Chatham got up and galloped off, and I thought it was amazing, even though I landed on my backside again. So, but yeah, there's nothing like it, and I'm sure Mick will tell you the same about having your first ride in the Grand National. It's a great feeling.
Yeah, Mick, what do you think on that front? Like, for a jockey having their first ride in it, say this year, compared to when you guys were having your first rides in it, is it that same kind of awe-inspiring, fearful, exciting experience? Because I mean, I know this is a subject that you all quite strongly, you feel strongly about AP, but it's a bit of a different race these days.
Yeah, when you walked around, when I had my first ride, you knew exactly where Beechers was, because it was just very different to all the other obstacles. Now, for some of the lads, they'll walk around and they'll think, "Oh, is that Beechers?" And that's quite sad, really, in many ways, because it was part of the lure and part of the I rode round the national fences. You could brag about it in the pub on a Saturday night. Whereas now there isn't that same sense of achievement, I think, when you actually get round. But, look, we've got to move with the times. That's the way it's gone. And you've got to take what you can get. And I think as a young rider, when you go there now, I think you can't help it. But when you walk out onto the track and you look where the start is for the national, you can see that line of 6 fences down to Beechers, and you remember all the great horses that have been before. And, you hope that, wouldn't it be amazing if my name was said, he won the Topham, or he won the Grand National, or for somebody who's going to be lucky enough to ride in the Fox Hunters. I've just had Sarah Bradstock ring me about walking the track with her daughter Lily. She's riding around the national fences for the first time on Thursday. For somebody like that to get their first chance to ride around there in the Fox Hunters, it is a big deal. And, it's a sense of achievement if you've got round.
Yeah, it's always going to have that prestigious air, isn't it? The Grand National. And they say, you guys have told me that these days it's a different feat, but it's still a demanding one. And is it almost that you need more stamina from your horse because there's more that'll be able to get round and they go quicker, do they?
It's just end to end gallop now. There's no real let up. Whereas before, people I always found anyway, they found their way for the first circuit. And then by the time you got to the water jump in the national with a circuit to go, the field had been thinned out by half. Whereas that's not the case anymore, is it, Jam?
No, I think there was 37 going out in the second circuit last year. It's just a faster race from start to finish. It's more of a stairs race. It's probably a better race in terms of probably the better horses have a better chance of winning it. I think there's, getting around in the Grand National, as we said, was kind of a feat. You go out into the first circuit and you try and see if your horse is going to take it or not, see if he's going to like it. I think now it's kind of a case of make sure you get in a good position where you think you're going to have a chance of winning. Like, you'll talk about horses like something like Delta Work, for instance. I thought got too far back in it last year. If he was ridden a bit handier this year, I'm sure will have a better chance. And I think it's one of those that you just, I think it's going to be harder to. I think it's just going to be. It's going to be harder to. It's just a faster race from start to finish, and in terms of trying to follow the right horses and things like that. I know we were saying it, but you can't compare it. I only didn't want to compare the feat of Tiger Roll if he was able to win 3 Grand Nationals compared to Red Rum, because there was nothing alike. I didn't even ride the 1995, the Grand National probably wasn't the same as it was in 1985, so but that's the only thing. But it's still a great race. it's still a great race. It's still it's still a great achievement if you're lucky enough to win the Grand National. It's a great feat, but it's a faster race now. It's a faster race, and when you have 37 going out in the second circuit, there's a lot more. There's a lot more horses around you as well for most of the race. So yeah.
It sounds kind of obvious, but whenever experts are asked, what kind of horse do you need to win the Grand National, they all say, well, you need one that can jump. Obviously, the jumps are a little bit different than they were, but a good jumper is key. Have you guys got the experiences? I know, AP, you said the first time you rode in it that they told you wouldn't get round, and Julie, you didn't. But have you ever gone out on one and hit the first fence and gone, oh, Jesus, like this is going to be a hairy ride?
Yeah, I mean, you ride different horses and you think, oh, this is going to be good. Challenger looked at exactly that. Challenger got beaten at King George. He didn't fancy it, but he always had loads of ability. He won a Paddy Power at Cheltenham. He had loads of ability. He was a really good jumper. He was a little bit. He was always going to mind himself. I thought he'd be a brilliant ride in the Grand National. He went down to the first fence about 20 yards away. He charged at it like as if it was on fire, and he absolutely headbutted it, turned a complete somersault, nearly landed on his feet. And then you ride horses. I won the top of a horse called Northern Starlight, who was a pony. I went to school him along with all the Grand National horses and Martin Pipes. I think he'd 9 or 10 a year, and I schooled the 9 or 10 horses the Nash that were going to run to see which one I might like, see which one I didn't like, and he turned out with this little horse, and he said to me, "Oh, will you school him?" I said, "What am I schooling him over?" He goes, "Those." I went, "You're joking me." And I have a picture on my phone of Northern Starlight. He was 15-2 at the most. And Norman Williams,
Tiger Roll, right?
way smaller than
Really?
Tiger Roll. And the fences were huge. And I remember being at the first fence in the top and Norman Williamson looking down at me thinking, "Oh my God," he said, "I don't know how you're riding that." And he won. He was amazing. And I'll never forget to this day thinking how Northern Starlight ever jumped around Aintree. So some of them you think are going to be, not like it, and some of them, sometimes you can get a surprise, but it is a little different now. I say the likes of, you'd like to be going out and riding a Noble Yates or a Delta Work or one of those. I think the classier horses are going to maybe come to the fore. There was a time when you used to think, oh, horses over 11 stone might struggle to win, or horses that, there was stats against them, but those stats are out the window now. It's different. Look, it's for, you'd have to say it's for the best. If it's a safer race and better for the horse, then that's what we want, isn't it?
You've changed your tune, taking that.
It sounds good, doesn't it? It's the world we live in. All these people want to watch a race that's different because, for whatever reason, but you can't say that anymore. I always liked the challenge of the Grand National, got out riding in it with the hope that if I could get round, I had a chance of winning. Now it's not like that. You know what I mean? It's not like that. So, but anyway, it sounds good. You have to say all the right things, Francesca. Do you know what I mean?
Don't we know?
So,
we get tripped up very quickly on the telly. Still must be one hell of a adrenaline rush. I was lucky enough to get led over the Grand National schooling fences by a proper jockey, Richard Johnson, and that was great.
To be fair, him and Tom Scuddymore I think they have both ridden 20 times and never won. The worst record. And the worst, unfortunately for Dickie, at least he had the torture of actually thinking that he was going to win in What's Up Boys for a long way. Which is even worse.
Anyway, I was going to say that was scary enough and an amazing feeling to be able to do it. But going down to that first fence, like you say, you've got them all spread ahead of you, and with so many horses around you, you must literally just be kind of reacting on your impulses every second, kind of just trying to work out what everyone's doing around you. And I guess you have to rely on the horse a huge amount, don't you, Meg?
Yeah, look, you can be on the best jumper and something in front of you will fall and bring you down. So you've got to be aware of what you're following. And, look, you pick out certain horses, like you're any second now. Delta Work, Galvin, he was good over those cross-country fences when he ran at Cheltenham. All those sort of horses that have been there before. Noble Yates, if you're following one of them, you're thinking, right, well, I've got half a chance here because they should know what they're doing, even if the horse that I'm riding doesn't. But you can get blindsided by something that happens. And then if you do have a loose one in the middle of the race, you've got to worry about what that's going to do, because as we all know, horses can have minds of their own and do silly things and just disappear off down to the inside or the outside of the fence. So that's something you have to take on board as well.
I always remember it was you, wasn't it, AP, when you're riding like a well-fancied horse for JP and it was Canal Turn and the loose horse came and like cut you
Clan
all
Royal.
up. Oh, just tell me what that was like relive it for me.
I suppose a few years earlier, I was probably in a similar position, maybe even better on Blowing Wind, the year Edmerada won. That there was a pile up, I think, at the Canal Turn. Paddy's Return was loose and took out a load of horses, and I think there was only 6 of us going out in the second circuit. Red Marauder, Bow, Smarty, and Papillon and Blowing Wind. So it must have been 2001. And Ruby and I anyway, a loose horse ran across, I think, about the 4th down the side on the second circuit. Literally ran into Blowing Wind, took him out, ran into Papillon, took him out as well. And then we remounted and finished third. And I kind of thought, look, lots of people think they're going to win the Grand National, but Blowing Wind was jumping amazingly well, was absolutely cantering. And I think he might have won the Grand National. Whereas Clan Royal was going out in the second circuit, jumped really well. He'd been second, I think, the year before. Third, he'd been placed the year before behind Amberley House. But was very keen with me all the way, but was jumping like he was a numb horse anyway. So it's not to say he wouldn't have kept going. But the year Hedge Hunter won, and it was going down to Beechers. There was a load of loose horse in front of me. I was looking at them everywhere. I kept out thinking I could go back in. And when I went out, the loose horses kind of followed me and wiped me out. And that was the end of it. But you know what? You get a lot of normality in some things. I remember going back into John Joe O'Neill and said, "Oh, it was the worst thing that ever happened." And this is something that I'll never ever forget about losing a horse race or a horse race not going well. And I said, "That's the worst thing that can ever happen." He said, "No, it's not." He said, "The worst thing that can ever happen," he says, "is when you're lying in a hospital bed and you're waiting for the doctor to come and tell you if you're going to live or die." And I'll never ever forget thinking, I can't believe I said that to a man who was in that position before. And I left the entry thinking, you know what, it was a big disappointment not win the Grand National, but when you're talking to John Joe O'Neill, who's been in that position, he had a different outlook on now, lucky enough, things did go better a few years later. But anyway, it definitely changed your mindset and I was very careful of what I said to him forevermore. I know that much after not winning a horse race for him.
Well, I want to hear about both of your winning moments. But Mick, that was what finished your career, wasn't it? A bad fall in the National?
Yeah. But look, you make a choice. Like AP had actually ridden him, I think, the year before, Lamy. And, I had a choice of, I think, 3 horses that year in the race. Snowy Morning, who finished placed, Lamy, and there was another horse as well, which got round and ran quite well. And I thought, well, Lamy will be a good spin. I think I'd finished 4th or 5th in a Gold Cup on him. So, he was a decent enough horse. And I thought, well, the one thing he's going to do is jump round. And, the horses, they make fools of it. He basically went to the second fence and had a blank. Not a great time to have a blank, if I'm honest. But look,
what actually happened?
Well, nothing, Francesca.
He didn't take off.
No.
Take off.
He decided that he wasn't going to engage his brain. And I can remember, this is going to hurt. And then that was it. Next thing I remember waking up and thinking, oh my God, this is not going to plan.
And what was it? What were your injuries?
Well, basically I did C3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So I did quite a bit of damage. And I couldn't, I was lying there. I basically paralyzed. I couldn't feel my legs. Oh. And I was just, look, there was very little fright in me, but I can tell you in that moment, I was very scared. And it's weird, people talk about having to give up and having to retire and, being a tough decision. But in that moment when I was lying there and I couldn't feel my legs, the last thing that I was thinking about was riding horses. All I wanted to do was be able to move my legs. So, in many ways, it was easier for me when I retired because I felt like I got a second chance. Whereas for other people who have to decide when it's time to call it a day, it's a tougher decision for them. So in many ways, it was really tough because I still thought I had a couple of good years left in me. But in many ways, I was happy that I was able to walk away in the end.
God, so you must have had like bruising on the spinal cord, and then once it went down,
I did.
Fine. Oh my God, that must be, you're right. That was a very good sense of perspective, because the idea of just not being able to walk again would be absolutely terrifying.
Yeah.
Golly. So, okay. So on a happier note, tell me about the year you won in 1990.
Oh, look, it shows you the ignorance of youth. I was oblivious to all the dangers, oblivious to what can go wrong, what can go right in a race. I was just convinced he was going to win. I really was. Like, it's surreal, and it's weird, the things that go into your head. But I saw Richard Kingscote at the Derby this year when he rode Desert Crown. And I said to him, how are you feeling? We were doing that photo call. We were all in Her Majesty's colours. And, you know, he said to me, he said, you know what? He said, I can't really understand it. He said, and I don't really know whether I should say it, but I feel like I'm going to win the Derby. And I said to him, well, look, if it's any consolation, when I won the National, I was absolutely convinced I was going to win. And I did. So, and thankfully he won the Derby, but it shows you, I thought I was going to win a couple of other times and I never won. But that first time I kind of got it right. So, you know, it is the ignorance of youth, didn't know any different, didn't know any better, but it was basically like everything went right. And everything that I followed what I thought were the right horses. And I looked up, I can remember being in front of me was party politics. And I thought, oh, he'll be a great one to follow. And I actually couldn't follow him. And he fell at the third. And basically, had I been following, he probably would have brought me down. So, you know, you just get lucky. And, you know, on some days, everything falls right for you. Like, he was a hold-up horse. You couldn't hit the front on him until halfway up the run-in. That was exactly my plan. And it just went perfectly. And, you know, sometimes you get it right and you look like a hero, but very often the horse does all the work and basically you take all the glory.
Wait, just remind me, that was your first ride in the race?
Second. Yeah. Well, it was almost my first, because I only got as far as the first on my first one.
Yes. Okay. I remember hearing about that.
Yeah.
Gosh, well, things improved.
And the fact that you were going to win, Michael, did you think about what you were going to say afterwards, or did you just
no,
just sort of like
no? What did he say?
So.
What did he say?
Well, look, Des Lynam, who's like God, was interviewing me, so I kind of lost the run of myself. And he said to me, Mick Fitzgerald, you've just won the Grand National. How do you feel? And I said to him, Des, after that, even sex is an anticlimax.
And then you've been reminded of it ever since, I'm guessing.
Yeah, but you know what? It's better to be known for something than never known at all.
Oh, Mick. Oh, don't say that. You're known for lots of wonderful things. Gosh, there's so many things I want to talk to you all about. Oh, yeah. So Mick went on a second attempt. AP, you went on your 16th, was it?
15th, Francesca. Only 15.
Well, I've got after 15 failed attempts, so I went for 16.
Yeah.
No doubt I was wrong. How many times in the previous 14 did you think, like Mick, that you were going to win it?
Probably about genuinely 5, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, there was ones I kind of thought, yeah, maybe. Actually, I thought I was going to win them all, but 5 of them I actually genuinely thought I was going to win. Probably the first one I rode, what was my first one that I thought was going to win? I thought Challenger Luck might win. I thought a horse of Terry Neal's called Dark Stranger was favourite. I thought he might win. Thought he fell at the third. Thought Blowing Wind might win, definitely once. Thought Clan Royal had a chance of winning. Butler's Cabin had won the Irish National. He fell at Beecher second time. I thought he was going well. He probably would have won. Look, they felt like he was going to win. So yeah, I thought I was going to win a few of them. But and then the one that I actually did win was 50-1, I'd say 3 weeks before the Grand National. He pulled up at Cheltenham in the Pertemps. JP had 4 horses in the race. Actually, one of the 4 was Antipost favourite, Arbor Supreme. He was second in the Leopardstown Chase in February, and he was Antipost favourite, I think, after that for the Grand National. And I remember him asking me about Arbor Supreme, and I thought, God Almighty won't get him around. Never mind win. So because I'd ridden him in the Thyestes and thought there's no way I'll get him around the Aintree. And King's John's Castle had been second in it a couple of years earlier to Comply or Die, but had been off for a long time. And then there was two of John Joe's Can't Buy Time who won a chase at Cheltenham on New Year's Day. Didn't have, it wasn't a bad horse, but never thought he had the class. And Don't Push It, I thought was a really good horse as a novice. Got beat one day in Cheltenham in December. I told JP he was a machine and none will beat him, and he got beaten half a length in novice chase. Couldn't believe it that he got beat. And as it turned out, it was Denman that beat him half a length. And then he fell in the Arkle. And when he fell in the Arkle, he wasn't really the same horse, but he actually won the handicap chase at Aintree the Saturday, on the same day the year before. The race before the Grand National, he won the year before. And it was the last time he'd shown any form. And he pulled up in the Pertemps, and I said to John Joe, I said, look, I'll whatever one you want. I said, toss a coin. And he said, Don't Push It. But I'll never forget walking around the start. Say he was definitely 33-1 2 weeks before the Grand National. But I remember walking around the start with David Casey, who used to live with me. He's Willie Mullins' assistant now. And he looking up at the betting, he says to me, he said, oh my God, he said, have you seen the price of Don't Push It? He said, how are you going to explain getting beaten in another favourite at the Grand National after 15 goes? But look, I didn't have to explain it. I'd actually just, do you know what? I kind of thought after a circuit, I thought, yeah, this could win because he had ability. Like he definitely had ability, and he was jumping really well. And then, you have these things about in your head that happened before, like what happened with Blowing Wind, what happened with Clan Royal, and you think, you can't really, you can't really take it for granted in the Grand National. But I kind of thought, from the Canal turn that he had a good chance of winning. You're looking at horses to follow and which ones. Black Appalachia had kind of made the run, they'd gone pretty quick all the way. And then you think about Grand National things that have happened or you've watched in the past. And I remember watching Richard Dunwoody winning on Mini Home, and he kind of waited on him, and it wasn't until he got to the elbow that he really went for him. You know what I mean? And I always thought if I ever get in the position to win the Grand National, that wait till the elbow before you wait to and I mean, imagine thinking about what someone else did in the Grand National when you're actually riding the Grand National yourself. What's the right thing to do? But that's what was going on in my head. That's what was going on in my head, just to try and make sure that the one chance you get of winning the Grand National, you don't mess it up. So
you're kind of mentally replaying every Grand National that's been.
Yeah. And you think you actually would think in the Grand National you have enough to thinking about riding your own horse. Never mind what happened to someone else, 15 years ago or 16 years ago, what they were doing. You know what I mean? But actually that's what I had those things in my head that I always, that you have those things in your head that you kind of think to make sure that you're going to do the right thing. But
it's such a fine line, isn't it? Because one minute you're thinking, we don't want to go too soon, but then you're thinking, well, I need to kind of maybe kick from someone coming from behind me. And I always think, without wing mirrors, how much, because you don't really want to look around too much. How do you know how?
No, I know that Big Fella Thanks was beside me. Hello Bud was another one that was going well. They'd been in front of me all the way. Big Fella Thanks I knew wasn't a particularly strong stare, or I thought it wasn't a particularly strong stare. And I knew that Black Appalachia had gone at it. I kind of thought he was my target. I didn't think that, I thought that I didn't think there was anything going to be coming from behind me to beat me, So I kind of made him the target. And you hope that from there that you're going to get home. And the one thing, I mean, John Joe has been a brilliant trainer, but he's been a brilliant trainer of staying chasers, horses that can win, that can win nationals and win staying chases. And so I kind of felt like Don't Push It was going to stay really well. And look, it is amazing to win the Grand National. I think probably, I said at the time, there was a lot of fulfillment from winning the Grand National, but there was probably a lot of relief as well. Because I told myself for years, Francesca, a lot better jockeys than me never won the Grand National, like John Frankham, Peter Scudamore, John Joe O'Neill, Frank Berry, Charlie Swan, multiple champions never won the Grand National. And no disrespect, there was a lot worse jockeys than me that did win the Grand National. So I used to, that was my thing when I was leaving Aintree on a Saturday having field. It's all right, all those lads didn't win either. But thankfully, so there was a lot of relief when Don't Push It won. There was a lot of relief.
Yeah, it's a funny one, isn't it? Because whilst the Gold Cup is the most prestigious race, the Grand National is still the Grand National. So it would be hard to retire without it being on your CV, but presumably easier to forego than not having a win in the Gold Cup.
Yeah, I'd go golfing with the lads, with Mick and Carl and a few of them, and they'd won the Grand National. People say, "Oh, oh, you're a jockey. Yeah, have you won the Grand National?" No. So you can win all the jockeys championships, win all the other races, but the man in the street really only knows, a lot of them only know about the Grand National. So yeah, it was kind of nice that I was able to say, yeah, I did win the Grand National.
And can you get a sense of it, because it's such a big occasion, and obviously there's millions of people watching on TV, but there's also masses of people at the track, and it is the Grand National. When you're in the run-in, when you're going past the elbow, and do you feel the enormity of the occasion?
Oh yeah, you do. I just look, you kind of know, sort of like you kind of know. I suppose when Mick won on Rough Quest, he had a Stewards Inquiry but you kind of get to that point from the elbow to the winning post, and you think, or you hope that you're going to win the Grand National. It is a special feeling. It is, as a jockey, because as a kid growing up, I'm not from a racing family. Like, I've 4 sisters and 1 brother. None of them have ever sat on a horse in their life. So I remember my granny back in Last Suspect in 1985. I think he was 50-1. So that was kind of one of my first recollections of the Grand National. I was 11, and that's kind of the thing you think about. That's what makes the Grand National different, is that people have a once a year watch a horse race. They watch the Grand National. So if you're a jump jockey, you certainly want to be lucky. You hope that you're going to be able to retire and saying that I've won the Grand National. So, but yeah, so it was kind of cool.
Okay, so which jockey is going to be able to say that this year?
I think if you said to me, right, you can ride one, I think if you're looking for a horse to give you a great ride and have a very good chance, you'd be definitely looking at the safest option would be Any Second Now or Noble Yates, because they've been there before. Any Second Now, yes, he's carrying more weight than last year. He's a little bit higher in the ratings, but he's better off with Noble Yates, and he's been in really good form this year. He's been saved for the race, and I think he's a definite player, but he's got a lot of weight to carry. Corrick Rambler is ahead of the handicapper. He's a quirky horse, and if he can take to the hullabaloo and the buzz and all the other things that can go wrong, because he is a hold-up horse. And the one thing that I would just be a little bit worried about with Corrick Rambler is, if you go back to when he ran in the Classic Chase at Warwick, he got himself behind and he couldn't then make the ground up. He's a much easier horse to ride now, but that's the only nagging doubt I have about Corrick Rambler. His jumping is good and he's well in.
What about his jockey, though? Because he's forgoing a ride on a Hoy Senior on Thursday in a Grade 1 because he wants to be fit for the ride on Corrick Rambler. But it does not make you think that he's going to struggle to be ready in time for Saturday.
But look, AP and I, were both pretty numb when it came to getting back to ride. And if I had 2 arms and 2 legs, I'd be wanting to ride a Hoy Senior on Thursday. So Derek Fox must be pretty sore if he's not riding him on Thursday.
Which makes you worry about him in the National, does it not?
Yeah, it would. Because who's then gonna ride Corrick Rambler? Because Lucinda Russell's got a very good young lad called Patrick Wadge who rides for her, who's really capable, and he's ridden a few winners for the Old Gold team on their horse, but he's too inexperienced for a ride like that. And I'm sure there'll be plenty of lads who will put their hand up. I heard that plenty of jockeys haven't got rides in the race yet. They'll be putting their hand up for him, but a horse like him who is quirky, knowing him is a must.
Okay, so we've had mixed tips for
I think the fact that Brian Hughes is riding the Hoy Senior, I don't think that she'd be looking past him. If why would you? If he's given the chance to ride Corrick Rambler, Derek Fox doesn't ride him, I think Brian Hughes will ride him. I mean, you couldn't really leave him in the way of, no disrespect to any of the other lads, but there is no doubt that he is well in. He travelled through the race in Cheltenham that he won last year, even better this time round. He would be a brilliant ride. Whether he, he would be the one. He's very well in, and he would be a great horse to ride around in it, no doubt. And you look at the rest of them. I thought Delta Work got a little far back in the race last year. I think if he was ridden more prominently this time around, I think he could be the one. He's got 11. I mean, there was a few horses. I thought Longhouse Port ran it last year as well. He's 19 or 20 pound better off with Noble Yates this year. He won the last day in Down Royal. Martin Brazo, who trains him, one with number 6 Valverde. He was a little keen in the race last year in Longhouse Port. I think the form of last year's race, I think, is going to play a part. I think Delta Work, Longhouse Port, and even Noble Yates. Only a 7-year-old when he won last year, but even he got a little bit detached in the Gold Cup, and then he came home really well. He's even with the weight. Any second now, you kind of think his chance may have gone. He was a bit unlucky when in the times when he nearly got brought down, and then he got beat by the best handicapped horse last year that probably ever ran the Grand National. Delta Work, Longhouse Port. Yes, I think those would be the ones that I'd like. I think I'd like Delta Work. I know, I'm not sure it'd be a great story for people thinking that, anyway. But I think you like to see the people would love to see a Lucinda Russell win again, or rather than one of the big yards. But Gallard de Menil was probably a little lucky when he won the National Hunt Chase at Cheltenham, but he's a little well in as well. It'll be interesting to see which one Paul Townend rides. Mr. Incredible is a talented horse, but he's very quirky. He might not want to start, never mind finish. So I think if I was picking one to ride, I'd probably pick either Cork Rambler or Delta Work. I think Longhouse Port is one that could run well as well. But Delta Work, I think, would be the one. I think if I was picking, someone was putting a gun to my head and say ride, I'd pick Delta Work.
Okay, but I think a lot of people watching this evening would love to see Cork Rambler winning for Lucinda.
Yeah.
And I imagine Skew would want to come out of retirement if he could to ride him himself with the jockey query, because he has such a good bond with the horse, and he's obviously been amazing for them, winning twice at Cheltenham, and he's in there with a nice light weight, so it could be a bit of a fairy tale for them. But it's not the only exciting horse that they've got running this week at Aintree, because Apple Away, our very own Old Gold Racing Apple Away, is running for that same team. She's won her last 2. Can't wait to see her in action on Friday. Have you guys been studying the form for that yet? I mean, I'm going to go to Mick on this one because I'd say
no. Actually, JP's got one at Zenta that ran the Triumph, was third, and probably will be very difficult to beat. Obviously trained by Willie Mullins, only had one run in Ferryhouse, never jumped the hurdle in Ferryhouse, and actually jumped all right. White took the last 2 hurdles out of the ground when it won in Ferryhouse, and ran very well in the Triumph behind Lossiemouth. Blood Destiny ran okay yesterday, having ran the Triumph as well, so the form is probably all right. Zenta, I'd say, will be hard to beat, but I do think your horse did when it won a market racing, but it'll be a big step up to try and beat Zenta, who's well in at the weights as well with some of the others, because she's a filly and she's getting an allowance as well. So Zenta has a lot going for her.
Yeah, and she's also another stable favourite. I know that Skew rides her most mornings as well. And I think that the staying trip is a big plus for her. So we're excited to see her running, and we're excited to have a runner on ITV, excited to have a runner in Grade 1 and Aintree as well. And on Thursday, we've also got another Old Gold horse running in the shape of Chaos Control in the 4-year-old juvenile hurdle.
Oh, sorry, that was the one I was on about.
That was the horse AP was on about.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry, I got the wrong one. Sorry.
Should we sack him?
Yeah, sack him.
Okay, so we've kind of had your case for
view on this race.
Chaos.
Yeah, sorry, I got the wrong race.
I was wondering about the market raisin form, but okay.
Sorry.
Mick, shall we hand over to you? Come on, tell us if we've got a chance in either of them.
But I think that Stuart Edmonds, his horses seem to have really hit form at the moment. This horse won nicely last time. The only concern that I'd have looking at the weather forecast up at Aintree. That's, I think, might play a part because it looks like there's quite a bit of rain around. It keeps changing all the time. And that would be, I'd just be a little bit of a weather watch at the moment because, you know, just the worry with chaos would be if the ground got very soft. I'd be a little bit concerned about that. So just keep an eye on the weather for that one. And I think the horse that AP is talking about, Zenta, that's probably going to take a little bit of beating in there. But look out for Gary Moore's horse in there, Beau Zenith. I think that'll run well. That actually beat Blood Destiny at Auteuil in France. And if the ground comes up very soft, I think that horse could run well at a price. But Zenta will be tough to beat, I think, in that juvenile. And
will you be giving Apple away a cheer for us on Friday?
Of course I will. I was there at Doncaster when she won. She's very game. And young Patrick Wadge, who I was just talking about, very, very capable young rider. He's one of the best claimers around. He rode her when she won at Doncaster in that race, when she beat a filly of Nicky Henderson's, I think it was on that occasion. But he's a good rider, that lad. He wasn't able to claim in that race at Doncaster. So it'll be interesting to see if they keep him on board in that race on Friday.
I'm just having a look at the chat because I think there was talk about, he's not on a ban, is he? Is he on a ban? No.
He's banned, Ed says.
Banned. Someone says he's banned. Okay, we might have to wait till Ed comes back on to tell us a bit more about jockey plans. Yes.
Well, anyway, there won't be a shortage of lads who'll want to ride her. That's for sure, because she's definitely got a bit of a chance. She's a really honest type as well. Okay,
and just more broadly for the week, things to look forward to. Constitution Hill, is that going to be another procession?
Well, yeah, it certainly looks like it. The more rain that comes, it won't bother him at all. Like ground, he's so versatile on ground. Softer the better. And then the big race on Thursday is the Bowl and Brave Man's Game. We're hearing today change of ownership. Obviously, John Dance has to give up his part in that horse and is going to run in the colours of Brian Drew.
Has to or has elected to? Do you know?
Oh, I think he has to.
Has to. Okay.
Yeah. But Shishkin is really interesting, stepping up in trip. He did not have a nice time with it at Cheltenham, looked very unhappy. But I actually saw him school last week and he looked a lot sharper. And yeah, I think I'll be back in Shishkin.
Mick, I think Ed might pop back up in a minute and put some questions to you guys, but we can't let you go without asking about Jamura, who ran yesterday. What was your thoughts?
Yeah, really interesting. He finished sixth. He got beat 6 lengths in that bumper at Chepstow. Spoke to him today. He's absolutely fine. He's a little bit weary after his run, but A1. We're going to have a look and see what happened. Sean Bowen rode him. He was really pleased with him and said, look, he's a galloper. He's a 3-miler, really. And he wants obstacles in front of him. So Nicky wants to have a look after the Monday or Tuesday of Aintree, see how he's come out of that run at Chepstow and decide whether we just carry on with him and go hurdling in May and try and win a novice hurdle with him over a trip. He's going to step him up to 2.5 and see how we get on. But really pleased with him. He ran a really nice race. He's a very honest horse. And it was so nice that so many people were able to go yesterday. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to make it because I was working for ITV at Kempton. But no, Sean Bowen was really complimentary about it.
Oh, good. And just quickly, before Ed comes in, I just want to ask, this whole chat about these animal activists wanting to kind of stop the Grand National. Is that a real concern?
Attention seeking. Honest to God, they wouldn't come to Hereford on a Monday, or would they? Not a chance. They're attention seekers.
Yeah,
I wouldn't give them the time of day.
They were on ITV this morning on Good Morning Britain. There was a lady on there, and I was a bit disappointed that we didn't have a more robust defence for horse racing to counteract her argument. Because as we all know, horses are so well looked after and so well cared for. In many ways, I'd feel like turning around and asking her, What would you like us to do with these horses? You know, turn them all out on the streets and let them fend for themselves? No, these are animals that they're treated better than some people are. That would be my argument.
We have loads of horses that are retired that go to good homes, whatever. Now, you wouldn't want to give them to them, but you'd love to bring 25 or 30 of them to Aintree on Saturday and hand them all a horse and say, here you go, you look after them. Job. You take them home. If you think we're not doing a good job, you bring them home and you look after them. See how they get on then. I guarantee they won't be so keen on looking after their horse then. They'll hand them back. He goes, oh, I don't want it. You know what I mean? So it just annoys me, you know, and I'm not saying that because the amount of homes that, you know, like I just seen Luke sent me a picture yesterday, you know, of, it's gone off course, of Notre Parry, a horse that JP had. He won a point to point with him yesterday. It's like a pet. It's like you know what I mean? It's like a dog. It's like, you know, it's like your child near you. I honestly, these people have no idea. And it's the good thing, not going off course, about having open days around areas like on Friday, the amount of people at Lambourne Open Day said to me, Francesca, oh my God, I didn't realize that the horses, the way they were looked after in the yard and stable and the lads looked after them, we kind of, you know, I think someone actually said to me they thought they were like greyhounds or like dogs, and, you know, think they didn't, you know, that they said I couldn't believe the attention they get, and then and the staff that look after them. But people, and people say, oh, we should educate them better. People don't want to be educated, and you know what? They should actually. It's like, I'm going on a rant. It's like horses have a, you know, people say, oh, they don't have a choice. You know, it's like saying that people on benefits don't have a choice whether they want to work or not. You know what I mean? Anyway, the horses. We have the horses have a purpose. That's what I'm saying. They do have a purpose.
That's true, and I think the most
for that purpose.
The most pertinent thing is what Mick says. You know, these people get a stage and they get to voice their opinions. Well, where's the counter argument? And like everything, we always try and tell the good news stories in racing. And for every one horse that is highlighted in the media for not being treated well, there's another 100 that are, but no one really wants to take the nice stories. It's only the bad
because
news.
the world we live in now, Francesca, that is not interesting. That looking after the horse really well and being nice to them is not really good. They only want to hear the bad thing that ever happens. It's like, God forbid, yes, unfortunately, some horses there is fatalities, but there's fatalities of people going to work. There's fatalities in everything that lives, it dies. You know what I mean? So unfortunately, and it's like, you know, you could go on. It's like you go on about horses. What's wrong with farming? You know what I mean? There's only one place that a bullock is going or a sheep is going. You know what I mean? It's not going to, you know,
and not survive the barbecue.
No, and this will actually give you a laugh. I was doing a cycle with Doc Pritchard during the summer, the London cycle. He was doing it for the vet Ian Cam, the Cheltenham vet's son, got paralysed in a car accident. And he used this thing called special effects, and he used it he communicates through his eyes. And he had done the cycle of London 100 miles. 10 days beforehand, Doc Pritchard and I and 10 of his Gloucester rugby mates were cycling down to the Severn Bridge on a day anyway. It was 26 miles down, 26 miles back. This lady was walking along the bridge, and I said to her, I said, oh, Doc Pritch said, oh, will you take a picture? And she goes, oh yeah, no problem. And she looked at me and she goes, oh, you used to be a jockey. And she went, yeah, I did. She goes, I don't like horses. And I went, oh God, here we go. I said, all right. She said to me, she said, I'm a vegetarian. I'm thinking, oh my God, what's that got to do with me? And I asked her where she lived. She lived in Bristol. I said, so what? You know what? When I was cycling down through the countryside, I said, you know, we should concrete over all them fields, get rid of all them animals, because that's a terrible industry. It's a terrible way of life. But that's what you're dealing with some people. They just don't want to. Anyway, it's a different rant. Anyway, let's talk about horses. Go on, Ed. Sorry, you take over.
No, I was going to say is actually we made a really nice video about 18 months ago called "What Really Happens to Retired Racehorses," and we took them team chasing, and Cheska's in it, and I'm the only one not on a racehorse because I needed something a bit stronger to carry me. And AP, you were going to come one time with us. So come team chasing with us. But
fall off in front of everyone. No, I'm all right.
You may not be quite. Yeah. But you know, we took all that quite seriously post that panorama, and we wanted to show the world what actually happens to retired racehorses. And I think you're absolutely right. I think that the people who are screaming just they want something to scream about. It doesn't. You know, you're quite right. They don't turn up to Hereford on a Monday afternoon. Anyway, so what I've really come here is to ask the questions. And I must say, you guys, and Cheska, you just sort of corralled this brilliantly, because I've been writing notes down where all these questions to come up. And actually, as you've done, you sort of answered them. So Will Mackenzie, you asked the most. And I'm pretty certain that every single question you asked during the course of it got answered. There was one which I thought was a nice question, which came from Tom. Tom, I didn't get your second name, but he's obviously going on Saturday, and he wanted to ask both, well, all three of you really, so you can all answer. If you're at the parade ring before the Grand National and you're watching the horses go round, what would you look at? What would maybe pique your interest to maybe indicate what might be the winner? What are you looking for when you're at the paddock? Let's start with you, Mick.
I'd like to say one that winks at you, but I don't think that quite works. But look, you're looking for a horse that's not getting too revved up, because it is a massive occasion. There's so much razzmatazz and so much for the horses to take on board. They've also still got the parade to contend with as well. Look for something that's relaxed but alert, and something that you think has got good form coming into the race. If you see a horse and it's throwing itself around before a jockey even gets on board, that is a no-no.
AP?
Definitely not what the jockey looks like. Anyways, you can see by the state of Mick and I wouldn't go on looks, so I wouldn't. Yeah, you want them to be nice and calm and relaxed. And as I said, I think horses that I think those the likes of the Delta Works, and you want to pick a horse that looks the part. You want a horse that walks around and he's nice and calm and he's not sweating up and he's not acting up and he's nice and relaxed. But as Martin Pipe told me once, when I said to him his horse didn't look like much, he said, "Do you have any mirrors in your house?" So looks aren't everything.
Cheska?
I find this question easier to answer if you're asking me what I'm looking for in a horse running in the 2000 guineas, but I honestly find it very hard.
2000 guineas. It's 2000 guineas the first week in May, so it's only a few weeks away. Come on then.
Look at its address. That helps.
I feel like it's a bit more indicative on the flat, because generally the better the horses look and away, the better they run. But I find on the jumps, it tends to be Willie Mullins horses that just blow any theories out, because they often look what you would consider a bit dull in the coat, or a bit light, or a bit this and a bit that. So, and I've learned not to kind of trust my eye on that, because they always run out of their skin. So difficult to know. Obviously relaxed is the key one, because they've got to go a long way and jump a lot of fences. But I always remember Tiger Roll used to stand out in a way in the paddock because he was small. He always looked very well, like a good looked good in his skin, and he had a nice kind of bright eye. But he wouldn't honestly have looked out of place practically in the 2000 guineas field, because he was a small kind of nuggety looking thing. He was bred for the flat, and he would have looked just as in place in the 2000 guineas field. But yeah, like these guys have said, small, big, ugly, good looking. Nicky Henderson's horses always look amazing, so it's hard to ever not one of those. So go with what speaks to you. Which one winks at you, like Mick says?
Tony, one for you to just come up on the thing now. In the Sefton Novice Hurdle, which is the one that Ab Plaway's in, and obviously a lot of people Ab Plaway fans in this. Have you had a chance to look at that race? Do you have any particular opinion? Has JP got a winner in that?
I'll have a look now.
Tell people she's come into 8-1, which is quite surprising, and Chaos Control's gone out to 28-1. So my double's looking same as it looked last night, but for all the wrong reasons.
Just 2 seconds now, and I'll have a look.
It's actually a wide open race. That, like, Stay Away Faye won the Albert Bartlett and looked pretty good. Yeah. But will this track suit that horse as well as Cheltenham? I'm not so sure.
And will Paul run Hermes Alin, will he?
He said he would yesterday when I was.
Yeah, I think he will. Yeah,
and the horse of JP's that won the Martin Pipe is actually not a bad horse, a Rocco, and he's a little bit defined handicap wise, but he's definitely open to improvement. And I'd say he'll improve having stepped up and trip, and having run in a handicap is a good advantage to run. I know that a lot of these have got experience running the novice hurdles, but a horse that come in a competitive handicap at Cheltenham, you find a lot of them end up being a Grade 1 horse. Now, obviously, Gallop and Deschamps won it a few years ago, and beat Lager Dan, who won at the Cheltenham Festival this year. I'm not saying the form is going to be that good, but you find that you often find that the Martin Pipe is one of the handicaps that, you know, the likes of Sir de Champ won it in the past. There's been a lot of good horses that won the Martin Pipe.
Brilliant, thank you both, and Mick too. That's fantastic. Look, I think it's probably time to sort of wrap things up. So, firstly, thank you all three of you, AP, Mick, and Cheska. These shows are fantastic. I love them. I'm watching the sort of chat going on here. Look at Facebook later, and people will say fantastically nice things there too. Thank you so much, Simon Tufnell and everyone at Gem Finn, for all the stuff that you do towards us. It's really helpful that, you know, that we can get these bills paid, and it helps us. We've got a couple more of these Zooms coming up with Cheska going front and center, because it's good. I think one's for the Derby on the 30th of May. So a Derby preview on the 30th of May, and we'll with a host of special guests, an absolute host of special guests, but I don't know who they are yet. And I think we're doing one for Royal.
Yeah, I put it in the diary actually already. That's good.
That's good.
That is good. That, you know, that is we miss you at Aintree. Yeah, I mean, I think that very much wraps it up. So Mick, Tony, Cheska, thank you so much, and all the guys with all the stuff that you've been writing and stuff. Okay, Will Mackenzie, one last question, because it's a good one. It's come, and you've asked a lot of questions, and they've all been really good. So, okay, last question before we hit the leave button. If it was soft ground, what would you fancy as an alternative selection to if it's good to soft? Mick.
Oh, dear.
Yeah,
by Willie Mullins.
Yeah, but look, I think when you get to the Saturday, if it is very soft ground, like it'll turn into a real slog. And look, I think Noble Yates, he's a real stayer. And I think if it comes up that kind of soft, you know, I think I think I plump for him. The thing is carrying the weight. Yeah.
Would you say the same, maybe? Just the softer it gets, the more Irish you go.
Yeah, I think that those horses at the top. You know, I genuinely, I don't think, you know, the likes of Longhouse Poet, Gallard de Manille, Noble Yates, Cora Grambler. I think they're all classy horses. Vanillier obviously won the Albert Bartlett a few years ago and looked like he was going to be a really smart horse. He hasn't taken as well defenses, but he ran better the last day when he was second in Ferryhouse. So he was, and that's, you know, that's probably not bad for him. Maybe him. He's a stayer, but no. I think Delta Work has got form on all kinds of ground, and I think if it was soft, and he's got a good weight as well. He's got 11 stone 4. You know,
one that I think will run well at a big price. If the ground comes up very soft, is Carefully Selected of Willie Mullins's. He won the Thyestes on heavy ground and looked like he stayed all day. And I think he's definitely a player if the ground comes up very soft. He's 33-1.
I'm guessing no one fancies Galvin for.
It's going to be really hard to carry that kind of weight, especially for his first try, Francesca. You know, and the softer the ground, I think the lesser his chance as well. I think if the ground was decent, I think he would have a chance because he's got a bit of class. Yeah,
it'd be nice for David Wilson, right?
And he also ran off levels in the cross country race, and Delta Work beat him. And I just think that I think having to give Delta Work £7, whatever it is, I don't think. I don't know. I think it'll be hard for him unless the ground was good. Maybe on good ground he may have the class to do that, but I don't think if it was good, the soft, I think he'll struggle to give him the weight.
There we go. Guys, thank you much. One little parish announcement for those who are interested. Racing Bricks Rider went up £5 in the handicap today. So we're going to Chester. So that's quite exciting.
Ed, it's a good thing when they go up in the handicap. You don't want them going down in the handicap. You always want them to go up.
Yeah, he's a toughie. He's got a good fighting spirit, hasn't he?
Yeah. He really has. Yeah, no, we're excited about him. And someone was asking questions about him, but I wasn't sure this was the right forum. But yeah, we're very excited. Cheska, Mick, Tony, thank you so much. It's so appreciated. You can see all the chat going up and down. Everyone loves it. Can't thank you enough. Hopefully see 2 out of 3 of you at Cheltenham and 1 out of 3 of you. I'll be texting to you what's going on.
Aintree, even Ed.
Oh yeah, that one.
Yeah. You won't see us at Cheltenham.
Thank you on that bombshell.
Take care, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Bye,
Bye
everyone.
bye.
Good luck this week.
Thanks.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye.
Bye.
Yeah, good luck with the packing, Francesca.
Thanks.
Bye.
Good luck with the telly.
Bye.
I'll be watching.
I bet you will.
I will.
Bye bye.
Take
Bye.
care.
Bye.
See you at York.
See you there.